and Introduction to Unit 32, Instructing Physical Activity. So to begin, the different components of fitness. To begin with strength. So the common definition is the ability to exert a force against resistance. The strength needed for a sprinter to explode from the blocks is different to the strength needed by a weightlifter to lift a 200 kilogram barbell. This therefore implies that there are different types of strength. So there is absolute strength and relative strength. Absolute strength is the maximum force an athlete can exert with his or her whole body or part of the body, respective to the body size. Relative strength, the maximum force exerted in relation to the body weight or muscle size. To put it bluntly, how do we get strong? A muscle will only strengthen when it is worked beyond its normal operation, or it is overloaded. So overloaded can be progressed by increasing the number of repetitions of an exercise, the number of sets, or the intensity by reduced recover time. There are also ways you can develop strength. So maximum strength can be developed by weight training or free weights in a gym. Aerobic endurance. During aerobic work, the body is working at a level that the demands for oxygen and fuel can be met by the body's intake. The only waste products formed are carbon dioxide and water, which are removed by sweating and breathing. And so obviously aerobic endurance is developed by using continuous and interval training. Continuous duration runs to improve the maximum oxygen intake, so VO2 max, and interval training is to improve the heart as a muscular pump, so that would improve the strength of the muscle as a whole and to help to pump out more blood per beat. To move on to muscular endurance. Muscular endurance is the ability of a muscle group or a singular muscle to repeatedly exert force against resistance. Performing multiple repetitions of an exercise is a form of muscular endurance, as is running or swimming. If your muscles have to contract in a similar pattern more than one time, you're using muscular endurance. To move on to flexibility. So flexibility, mobility, all mean the range of limb movement around a joint. In any movement, there are two groups of muscles at work: agnostic muscles, which cause the movement to take place, opposing the movement and determining the amount of flexibility, are the antagonistic joints or muscles. The benefits of flexibility. It plays such an important role in the preparation of athletes by developing a range of movements to allow technical development and assisting, and also in the prevention of injury. What goes along hand in hand with flexibility is stretching. So you have the two types of stretching: the static stretching and dynamic stretching. Static stretching involves gradually easing into the stretch position and holding it for 10 seconds. The amount of time a static stretch is held, it depends on your objective. If it's part of a cool down, then it should be held for more than 10 seconds. If it's to improve the range of mobility, then you would hold it for obviously longer, so for maybe 30 seconds. Often in static stretching, you're advised to move further into the stretch position as you're looking to just increase the mobility around that joint. Dynamic stretching consists of obviously controlled leg and arm swings that take you gently to the limits of the range of motion. Where the event requires a dynamic movement, then it is appropriate and perhaps necessary to conduct dynamic stretching exercises. Start with a movement at half speed for a couple of repetitions, then gradually work up to full speed. So dynamic stretching is one of the most important things to use is it eases you into the movement of the exercise you'll be conducting, and obviously to make sure you're ready to participate in the activity. There are also factors limiting flexibility, so obviously the internal influences would be the type of joint, as well as any structures inside which would limit movement. Also, the temperature of the joint, so if the temperature of the joint is lower, then obviously flexibility will be limited, but if it's higher, then the movement of the joint will be freer. And obviously external influences would be the temperature of the place where you're training or conducting the exercise, the time of day, and also the stage in the recovery process of the joint. So after a gym session or So to go on to body composition and body types. So obviously as an athlete, you want a combination of athletic ability and our own body build. The three components of body build are type, size and composition. You have different body types, somatotypes. The first one be an endomorph, and the endomorph individual typically has short arms and legs and a large amount of mass in their frame. The mass hampers their ability to compete in sports requiring high levels of agility or speed and perform sustained weight-bearing aerobic activities such as running. Sports with pure strengths like powerlifting are perfect for an endomorph. They can gain weight easily and lose condition quickly if training stops. The sports benefits, size benefits such as rugby, where bulk is useful provided it can be moved powerfully, tend to have large lung capacities which can make it suited to sports such as rowing. They can also increase muscle mass much more easily than ectomorphs. A mesomorph, this individual excels in strength, agility and speed. Their medium structure and height along with their tendencies to gain muscle and strength easily makes them a strong candidate for the top athletes in any sport. They can sustain low body fat levels and find it easy to lose and gain weight. Obviously the sporting benefits would be respond well to cardiovascular and resistance training, can sustain low body fat levels, and all muscle groups can be used to derive positive training. So obviously dependent on the sports needed, they can easily gain or lose weight. And finally, ectomorphs. A predominantly ectomorph individual is long, slender and thin, and therefore power and strength sports are perhaps not suitable, as their slight build leaves them susceptible to injuries. While they can easily get lean and hard, the lack of muscular lack of muscle, their chances in sport requiring mass are severely limited. Ectomorphs, they dominate in endurance sports and gymnastics that require low levels of body fat, which can help, obviously, with flexibility and stuff like that. So obviously the sporting benefits would be a light frame makes them suited for aerobic activities like gymnastics. And obviously their smaller body surface area also enhances their suitability for endurance training. So to go on to somatotypes, just to conclude, all athletes are made up of the three extreme body types. So we are all part endomorph, part mesomorph and part ectomorph. And obviously the perfect athlete wants to be a bit of all of these. Right, to begin, we're going to go on the physiological changes during physical activity. To start off with, we're going to go on the FIT principle. So the FIT principle is an acronym that outlines the key components of an effective exercise program. And so the FIT stands for frequency, intensity, time and type. Frequency, it refers to the frequency of exercise undertaken or how often you exercise. Intensity refers to the intensity of the exercise undertaken or how hard you exercise. Time, that refers to obviously how long you exercise for, and type is what kind of exercise you do. So to develop more, frequency, so it's the key component of a fit principle. Remember that this is important to know why you're exercising and what you want to achieve at the end of the exercise program. So obviously you have to adjust the number of times you exercise per week to reflect your current fitness levels. This means that you can realistically manage the amount of times you exercise a week, and you can set goals around, say, your commitments, so work or family. Let's go on to intensity. This is this is really important part of the fit principle, and probably one of the hardest factors to monitor. It's the way it's how hard you want to exercise every session. So it's basically monitoring possibly your heart rate. So you start off working the lower percentile of your working rate, and then every session possibly moving that up. A good way to monitor this is with a heart rate monitor. So you can buy one of these, and then it can monitor your heart rate, so you're keeping it in that lower percentile for your first few exercise sessions, and then moving it up gradually to again work your body harder in the long run. So time is obviously the time spent working out. It usually depends on the type of exercise you're doing. So obviously if you're doing cardiovascular, you usually do at least 30 minutes of like non-stop exercise. But then for more muscle strength improvements, you would do, so obviously 3 sets for maybe 8 reps. And type, obviously light time, the type of exercise you choose will have a big effect on the results you achieve. This is why you need to put in effort to gain from it. So obviously the type of exercise for cardiovascular fitness, you would either do jogging on the treadmill, swimming, bike riding, or rowing. For weight loss, or so for large muscle groups, so free weights, machine weights, and obviously like push-ups, chin-ups, and like tricep dips as well. So to move on to increased muscle tone and hypertrophy. So muscle tone is possibly stated as when they're ready for action. So regular training tones muscles and helps to create good posture. In addition, muscles will hypertrophy, so that means basically it will increase in size. So each muscle or muscle group, for example the biceps, is made up of a bundle of muscle fibres. So what happens when you exercise is they break apart, and when you recover and take time out of exercise, that's when they build together and become stronger and bigger, and that's basically what hypertrophy is. And in the long run, and they will develop better endurance in the activity you're undertaking. Muscle tone can be developed obviously by regular exercises, so just simple daily tasks such as walking and maybe shopping. It also helps to prevent injury, as good posture reduces the strain on muscles, tendons and ligaments. Good posture helps with sporting performance, as special positions are often crucial to success. For example, so the position throughout the golf swing, so that would obviously, good posture would obviously help with that. Moving on to the decreased resting heart rate. The resting heart rate of the body is the number of contractions that the heart occur in a single minute while the body is at complete rest. This number would obviously vary depending on age, gender and general health of the person. There will always be a large difference in resting heart rates of athletes when compared to non-athletes. In general terms, the resting heart rate of a person is a strong indicator of a person's basic level of fitness. The strength of the heart can be measured simply by taking the resting heart rate into account.
a strong heart can pump out more blood each contraction, meaning that a strong heart needs to beat less times per minute than a weak one in order for a body to have adequate blood flow. So therefore, those who have a high resting heart rate do not have a sufficient level of fitness. Athletes will have the lower resting heart rate of anyone, as they obviously do plenty of training to strengthen the heart in order to perform. So this allows the heart of an athlete to pump a large amount of blood per beat than obviously a person that doesn't do much exercise. So to move on to increased stroke volume. So stroke volume is the amount of blood ejected per beat from the left ventricle. And so that is obviously measured in millilitres per beat. So stroke volume increases proportionally when exercise intensity, and it obviously depends on what exercise you are undertaking, and obviously depends whether you are an amateur or an elite athlete. Stroke volume may increase up to 40% of maximal capacity, after which it obviously plateaus and straightens out, and then you would keep on that level throughout the whole of the activity. So the different health and safety considerations. To begin, so we're going to talk about the PARQ, the Physical Activity Readiness Questionnaire. So the PARQ, or obviously as I just said, the Physical Activity Readiness Questionnaire, is simple, and that can be used by anyone who is planning to start an exercise program, and obviously to try and make it as effective as possible. It is used by fitness trainers or coaches to determine the safety or possible risk of exercising for an individual based on their health, history, and current system and risk factors. It can also help a trainer design an ideal exercise program for someone based upon these results. So obviously the obvious thing after a PARQ is just obviously assess the risks and see if you're actually ready to partake in the physical activity program that you have designed for yourself. So the basic how to minimise participant injury is the most common cause of the sporting injury is the failure to warm up sufficiently before beginning activities. But also it is caused by incorrect use of equipment and insufficient safety precautions. So to develop on the insufficient safety precautions again, all gyms would have risk assessments. So that means all the risks, all detailed in severity order, will be shown to participants to show that they actually have carried out a risk assessment and made sure that all the risks that could possibly happen in a gym are in fact covered. Although it is impossible to prevent injury all the time due to the obviously unpredictable nature of sports and all physical activities, it is possible to undertake obviously the precautionary steps in order to decrease the likelihood of these incurring and obviously the possibility of injury in the long run. So the Exercise and Fitness Code of Ethics. The document was produced by the Register of Exercise Professionals. The code ensures that we deal with our clients in an appropriate manner and we make their safety a priority. The Code of Ethics covers 4 main areas. They are rights, relationships, personal responsibilities and professional standards. So to develop on these points, so principle 1 is rights. So you have to promote the rights of every individual to participate in exercise and recognise that people should be treated as individuals. Principle 2 is relationships, so you have to be able to develop a relationship with customer base, so on openness, honesty and mutual respect, and obviously ensure that physical contact is appropriate and necessary and is carried out with the recommended guidelines. Principle 3 is personal responsibility, so you have to demonstrate proper personal behaviour and conduct at all times. So obviously project an image of health, cleanliness and functional efficiency and display high standards in the use of language, manner and punctuality. And finally, Principle 4, professional standards. So you have to work towards attaining a high level of confidence through qualifications and commitment to ongoing training that ensures safe and correct practice, which will maximise benefits and minimise risks to the participant. To move on to what is contraindication. The dictionary definition is: a contraindication is any factor that will prevent a person from exercising to make an exercise unsafe. So an example of this is a PARQ. So it's the initial consultation to identify any potential contraindications and then decide what can be done to minimise the risk. So some more examples on common contraindications is obviously lung disorders, coronary heart disease, joint conditions, blood pressure higher than 160 over 100, and body fat higher than 30% for a male and 40% for a female. So now to begin with the importance of a warm-up and cool-down. So obviously a warm-up is the most important and significant way to reduce the likelihood of injury when participating in different physical activities. So a warm-up session should last at least 10 minutes and involves stretching and exercising the muscles to prepare them for the activity you're about to partake in. It is vital to warm up slowly and build up gradually to a more brisk and energetic pace. So that means when you warm up slowly, so that means the muscles are getting used to physical activity, and so if you jump into it straight away, then you are more likely to injure yourself. So obviously warming up allows an increased flow of blood to the muscles that are currently working, increasing the flexibility and therefore reducing the risk of an injury. So obviously the warm-up exercise you can do to increase blood flow to the muscles that will be working during your activity are obviously jogging and dynamic stretches as well. So these activities allow you to gradually increase the pace to further prepare your body for the exercise you're about to partake. So you would increase the speed of the jog to then just prepare your body further. So obviously when you have warmed up, you do stretches to lengthen the muscles, and then just that further prevents injury. And obviously you would hold these stretches for at least 20 seconds just to stretch them out and make sure you are not injuring yourself, basically. So the main aim of a warm-up is to gradually prepare the whole body for a workout. An effective warm-up will prevent injuries to the muscles, tendons and ligaments. Also, it will prepare the body for the specific exercise you're doing, and obviously allow greater movement of the joints. So that there are the different stages of the warm-up. So you'd start off with the light running or jogging. So that obviously increases heart rate, blood flow to the muscles and raises the body temperature. Stage 2 would be the stretching. So obviously allows the easier movement, increases the joint flexibility more, and obviously stretches the muscles to prevent that injury from occurring. For stage 3, you would obviously practice the actions for the specific activity you'll be doing. So it warms up the body parts that you'll be actually working in possibly a game situation. So for example, rugby, you would practice your passing, you would practice your kicking to warm up those specific muscles, so to make sure when you're doing that in a game situation, it doesn't end up injuring yourself. So yeah. And obviously those were the physical changes as well. So obviously increased heart rate and your muscles become more flexible. And to move on to cool down. So a cool down is to a gentle exercise that slowly decreases the heart rate and body temperature to allow the body to return to normal gradually. It also allows the muscles to get rid of the lactic acid. So obviously lactic acid is the waste product of anaerobic exercise that causes muscle fatigue. So that means in the morning you won't have stiff legs and you won't be aching as much. So obviously you can do progressive stretching that gently stretches the muscles that may have tightened during your exercise. It can also help reduce stiffness, soreness, and probably cramp at the same time. And so obviously the components of activities you can do in a warm down is just a light jog, so 2 or 3 times round the pitch you're doing, and obviously stretching as well that helps reduce the risk of further injury if you've already got that, or just to get rid of the lactic acid in the muscles.